Now, the government watchdog group OpenTheBooks.com has gone one step further in auditing several government agencies and mapping government spending in comparison to growth, and has discovered an alarming trend. Two examples. At the now infamous USAID, headcount grew 218% since 2000, but spending soared 467%, funding things like transgender opera in Colombia and DEI initiatives abroad. Another example, FEMA employee count rose 290%, while spending exploded 2,096% above 2000 levels. To get all the details, we spoke to an investigative journalist for OpenTheBooks.com, Jeremy Portnoy. Take a listen.
So we've been going through every single federal agency, actually, about 350 of them, totaling up their headcount, totaling up how their spending has increased. So you mentioned a few examples right there. Another big one is the Department of Education. Their spending has gone up 750% in the last 25 years, while grades have been falling throughout the country if you look at the national test scores. And it just goes into that theme, right, of the government getting more and more bureaucratic with each administration. We're seeing DOGE now finally trying to scale that back a bit. They're beginning to have some success, but it's a huge problem that's going to take years to fix.
This is the bureaucracy, the so-called swamp. You mentioned the Department of Education. I think in some of your information you say staff actually decreased by about 14% since 2000. But as you mentioned, spending surged 750% or so, even as student achievement has declined. What's going on there where you have fewer employees and more spending?
Right. You've seen that a lot over the last few years. Plenty of agencies increasing their grant spending, even if their headcount isn't going up. So a lot of times, you'll have opponents of DOGE or supporters of the bureaucracy saying, no, everything's okay because staff headcounts aren't increasing. But even if that's the case, you still see government getting involved in new areas. We saw in Trump's first term, the Department of Education set a one-year record for spending. Then that ballooned under Biden, increased all the way over $600 billion in 1 year. And now it's just beginning to explode. And we've seen recent national test scores showing that if you go back to 2000, math and reading scores in 8th grade and 4th grade have both fallen by a few percentage points, even though we're spending so much more money. So can the case be made then for just eliminating the Department of Education? This has been talked about. What would happen, theoretically, from your perspective? Exactly. I mean, that's Trump's goal. Realistically, he will likely need congressional approval. We'll see how everything plays out with the legal process. But what's going to happen there, right? So then you have grant spending that will either need to be reallocated to other agencies like the Department of Labor or eliminated entirely. So if that agency does get cut, that's what we're going to be looking for. Will those grants just be spread out to new agencies and the spending kept in place? Or will we actually see real spending cuts and seeing power return to the states, giving them more control again over their own education?
One agency I think is particularly interesting is FEMA, which I mentioned a moment ago. I think employee headcount rose 290%, while spending exploded over 2,000% above 2000 levels. That's 25 years ago, but still, that's a heck of an increase, fueling concerns about disaster response efficiency. We've just gone through a big discussion, I guess, about FEMA, about potential political targeting in terms of people avoiding homes with Trump signs in North Carolina. That was one big issue. And then there's this issue with regard to FEMA basically helping to fund refugee or illegal immigrant resettlement. But spending going up by over 2,000%, it seems like FEMA does not have a money problem, at least, right? I mean, as far as I can tell, that's a lot of money, even over 25 years, right?
But that's the shocking part, is that they actually do still have a money problem. They're still constantly in a budget deficit, requesting more money from Congress, because even though they have so much funding, they have not been managing it responsibly.
How is that possible? How is it possible your budget can go up 2,000% and you still don't have enough money?
Exactly. We found billions of dollars, about 8 billion last year, tied up that they still had allocated for old storms like Hurricane Katrina, other storms from before 2010 that they were still spending money on and had money set aside for. And that's why they were saying they didn't have enough money to serve victims of the storms that we just had last year. So it's a common refrain you see from every agency, right? Saying we need more money, but your spending has increased by hundreds or even thousands of percentage points over the last 20 years. That should be enough to start making an impact.